Hey, Victoria, welcome to the Empower Nutrition Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing so good today, Erin. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's an honor.
Oh, same. It's an honor to have you. I love following you. I love everything that you put out. I think it's so real to the experience that women have in our modern world. And there's obviously a lot to talk about, but maybe to start off, tell me a little bit about your journey of how did you get into the specific space that you're in and how did you find that niche?
Yeah, so it's definitely a personal story. And those who are listening, my niche is, working with women who've lost their periods and helping them get their periods back and get pregnant. And it's a personal journey for sure. So I never had a normal relationship with my body. I remember being a really young girl and comparing my body to other girls around me. I grew
Yeah.
up in the late 1990s and early 2000s. I'm sure so many of us can relate, right? Where like Lindsay Lohan being so skinny on magazine covers. And I just have these vivid memories of constantly thinking oh, am I supposed to look like that? And really at 16 is when it quickly spiraled into disordered eating. And that lasted for about a decade. And I wonder if you can relate to this, Erin, but for me personally, it was really intensified during my undergrad degree. I was going to school to become a dietitian.
That
And
was me too,
yeah,
undergrad, the peak
yeah,
of
my
my disordered
undergrad.
eating.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even the first few years, so the undergrad dietetic internship in the first few years as a dietitian, I mean, I was just obsessed with feeling as if I needed to look and act and be the part that everyone expected of me. I thought I needed to have a perfect body, and I've just never been someone who's tiny that way. So it just was this constant obsession with trying to fix
Yeah.
my body, therefore trying to determine what's the perfect diet, what's the perfect exercise routine. And it led me down a really negative path of an eating disorder characterized by the unhealthy obsession with eating healthy. It's called orthorexia. And that was certainly me to a T. I was just obsessed. And I had a
Yeah.
wake up call, luckily, right after my honeymoon. I was binge eating the entire honeymoon, came back and kept binge eating because I was so restrictive the whole year leading up to the wedding
Yeah.
itself. And I
Yeah.
was just this sucks. There's got to be a better way. I can't live my life being this extreme around food and feeling this obsessive to it. Took up all of my brain space and really all that I thought
It's
about.
on some level, you knew it wasn't normal.
I knew it wasn't normal. And it's really interesting. Around this time, I also was getting into the hormone health space. I was learning about birth control and the negative impacts of it. And I made the decision to get off birth control. For me personally, it wasn't about actual fertility at that time. I got off of it 4 years before I started to try to conceive. But I'm so glad I did because my period didn't return. And it took about 2 years to get my period back. And that's what led me to being oh, there's this connection between my period loss and getting off birth control, but also my disordered eating. And I
Yeah.
wanted to learn as much as I could about the connection between all of that. And that's really what led to me starting Nourishing Nice Nutrition back in 2017. And ever since then, we've been helping women heal their disordered eating, have a healthy relationship with food, but really specifically tied to the causes of, period loss and period irregularities, and even just period problems caused from the way that we eat and the way we treat our bodies, leading people ultimately to the goal of getting pregnant and holding that beautiful baby in their arms.
Ah, so good. Our stories are so similar too.
Really? Can you
Yeah,
relate to that?
absolutely.
It's so
Very
interesting
similar.
how many dietitians can relate to that. Whenever I tell my
Yeah.
story, so many dietitians are yeah, I did the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because I actually am a second career dietitian. So I was in school, military school, and I had a whole career in the military. But, it was this very similar of overly restrictive eating, period loss, hormonal birth control, and just not understanding the connection between all that is weird because
Mhm.
I was getting healthcare the whole time. Somebody's prescribing the birth control. It's
Yeah.
it's weird how much this conversation is missing from maybe a traditional care setting.
Yeah, and how much birth control is used to regulate people's periods. I mean,
Yeah.
most of the clients I work with are women who've been on it the way I was for a decade plus.
Yeah.
No one ever once questioned the use of it, or more specifically questioned, why are you using birth control to regulate your period? That's just
Right.
acting as a Band-Aid. That's not going to fix why your period is missing in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw something you put on your Instagram that I thought was interesting around discussing why would it be that when you get off of hormonal birth control, your period may not be regular? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So when you get off of hormonal birth control, especially for a lot of the people we see, it's that they've been on it for years and years and years, your body has used it to, use the synthetic hormones specifically in order to produce the cycle you have. Most women aren't educated when they're put on birth control that that's just a withdrawal bleed from synthetic hormones. And, specifically with our population, because you could get into a whole thing about birth control and the negative impacts, but for us, and really what we see time and time again, is women who just were never taught that that's not going to fix their period loss or period irregularities, because for them specifically, they were put on it for that very reason, whether that's a PCOS diagnosis, a amenorrhea diagnosis, or I don't know, I don't get a period. Just go on birth control. It will regulate your cycle, and then it never does. And then they get off of it to try to get pregnant. And they're like, what's happening here? I can't get pregnant because I don't have a period.
And they were thinking the whole time, like, oh, I've been having periods on my birth control. It's like, but there was an underlying problem here that was never addressed.
Yes. And it's also a huge problem, like you said, because this underlying issue of their under eating and their overtraining is never addressed. And then what happens is, they are like you and I were, right? We were like, I'm the healthy one. I'm the healthiest person I know. I eat perfectly. I exercise every day. Why am I not having a period? And there's just this huge disconnect between getting off birth control to realizing like, oh, this is the very reason I actually don't have a period. And maybe it was, I was put on it during an eating disorder back in high school or back in college, whenever I did need to use it for birth control reasons. But, the underlying reasons were really never addressed. And then, unfortunately, when you're trying to conceive, dealing with period loss just really complicates all of that, even more so than just fertility frustrations are a complicated matter in and itself.
Right. Obviously, you get to speak with a lot of women who have lost their periods. Do you feel like, in your mind, I'm kind of curious what that pie chart looks like of like what the reasons are, like, is a large piece of that pie true eating disorders, or is a lot of it kind of this like subclinical disordered eating, or is a lot of it PCOS or like just low energy availability, like in combination with like over exercise? Like, how do you think, or it's something else I'm not even thinking about, like, or talking about, like endocrine disrupting chemicals? Like, what do you think are like the biggest reasons for the missing period?
That's such a good question. I feel like it's all the things that you've addressed, but specifically what we personally see the most is subclinical disordered eating. So they would maybe never have been diagnosed with an eating disorder. I know that would have been true for me. Like, I don't think a doctor would have ever been able to say, hey, like, you have an eating disorder, because I presented so healthy. And that's, again, very much my people too. They're such that healthy person. They would never have been formally diagnosed. But, if your thoughts are 90% on food and exercise, and it's all that you think and do, and it's your entire identity, that's kind of a clue that something's up there. And that maybe that we need a little bit more space for other things in our lives. So subclinical disordered eating the most. We do see quite a bit of PCOS, both actual PCOS, but also misdiagnosis of PCOS, because the Rotterdam criteria can be so similar to hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is the primary focus of our practice. It's very, very common to get a misdiagnosis of PCOS. And then also just actual eating disorders, whether that's someone, and I feel like this is probably the most true, is we see people who often had an eating disorder, like a pretty significant eating disorder back in their high school and college years, and they're nowhere near that, but they are never fully healed either. And also the nutrient deficiencies caused from just like literally not eating enough for years and years and years. And again, they might be weight restored, but they're not really healed. And then sometimes we do see someone who's actually still in an eating disorder, but it's more so usually the disordered eating component that we see. And that's, I think, a part of why it goes missing so much is the birth control use, the misdiagnosis of the PCOS. And again, they may never, like myself, like you, Erin, have been formally diagnosed with an eating disorder.
Yeah, and would be diagnosable. But so I think that's kind of what I was thinking you might say, because we've seen a lot in our practice of like, there's just like this huge subset of the population where like, if you got worked up for an eating disorder, you wouldn't meet the criteria. But your eating is disordered enough to have health ramifications and emotional ramifications and impacts on your life. But
it affects every area of your life, your relationships, your emotional health, physical health, your fertility. Truly affects everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like it's not an easy thing to fix. I mean, it sounds like a lot of times you're kind of catching up with women when like they're starting to try to think about having a family and getting pregnant, and they're starting to want to get serious about this missing period. What are some of the like I mean, obviously, I want to get into what you do about it, but tell me some of the things that you see that people have like already tried that are like not working, like the
Mm.
mistakes that people are making with this.
Mistakes. I love the questions that you're asking. So I would feel probably most of all is supplements, thinking that
Mm,
supplements are going to fix it, taking random Vitex or Maca. And let me be real clear here. I love supplements. We use them very strategically in our practice. There's a lot of supplement protocols that we utilize, but just willy-nilly taking random supplements that you found off the internet, that's going to
totally.
heal your hormones. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
Thinking just gaining 3 pounds is going to solve this problem is a mistake. There's usually more that needs to occur than just gaining a few pounds. We'll see people say, I cut back on, I stopped running marathons, but I'm still exercising 6, 7 days a week, or I'm still walking 20, 30, 40,000 steps a day. Or they might say like,
Dang.
it's crazy how often I see that number, which is why I
Gosh.
specifically state that number. I mean, these are people who are like not only exercising every day, but they're walking 1 to 2 hours every day too. We also see a lot of like, hey, I added in healthy fats. I'm eating avocado. I started eating, adding olive oil when I started cooking my vegetables, but that's still not enough to get your body in a proper state of safety to turn back on the ovulation switch that will then allow for your body to ovulate, cycle, and then get pregnant too.
Yeah.
So
If you're like at
supplement,
10% of your needs and you get from 10% to like 30%, you're still at only 30%. So
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that just comes from fear of weight gain, which is so understandable. And I
Yeah.
think it also comes from just lack of understanding of what it really takes to get your body full safety. And again, kind of alluding to what we were talking about earlier, how many of us grew up in a state where we thought eating 1,200 calories a day was normal? So the idea of eating significantly more than that, it's just terrifying because it's like, what do you mean? Like I've been eating 1,200, 1,500 calories for 20 plus years. This has to be enough. This is all that I know. And I think
Yeah.
all those reasons really complicate the matter.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. The supplement thing that hits too. I mean, that is just a really common mistake we see too.
Yeah. And supplements can be so supplemental to the healing journey. They can be so helpful. We use them a lot in our
Same.
practice.
Oh yeah. We're not
I mean,
anti, but just
they're a huge
randomly.
part of what we do, right? Especially
Yeah.
with fertility supplements. I mean, we put everyone on a very specific plan for
Mhm.
that. And when you just take a random supplement and you don't test and you're just guessing, you actually could be causing like the exact opposite of what your body needs and make your symptoms so much worse. For example, I see people supplementing with DIM all the time. I'm like, okay, cool. DIM is for specific reasons, but in this specific case, you
Yeah.
don't want to lower your estrogen. We need to
Right.
raise your
The
estrogen level.
opposite of what you need.
Yeah.
We see that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The random Vitex, like that's real.
Yeah, and the random Vitex, the random DIM, the random Maca.
Mhm.
I mean, again, they all have their time and place, but not
Yeah.
necessarily going to fix this alone. I wonder if you see that a lot with digestion too. I feel like that's another one where people
Oh
are like,
yeah.
"Oh, I'm just going to take this supplement that I found on TikTok, or this,
Of
this
course.
TikTok influencer takes this specific, blend of greens powder, thinking that alone is going to solve their problems."
Girl, the things we've seen, it's like so bad. I feel like recently the new trend is like they're getting protocols from ChatGPT,
No.
like full gut protocols, and like it's like really dangerous. Like the protocols, like I have like a membership of other dietitians, so like we all talk, and several of us have seen this where they're taking like very dangerous protocols that are like basically wiping out their gut microbiome, like high dose, broad spectrum antimicrobial herbs, like for the wrong thing, and just like really
Gosh.
bad.
That
Just
is
like
really bad.
like
ChatGPT has its positive benefits, but let's never ever use it for individualized care. Like it just can't be
yeah,
this bad.
it
It can
doesn't
do a
it
lot of
doesn't
things,
know
but not
you.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't know what to do. So yeah, bad idea. So tell me, I'm glad you brought up estrogen though, because I'd seen that quite a bit
Mhm.
on your Instagram. It sounds like that's a common culprit, that women, when they have this kind of situation of like low energy availability, maybe under consuming calories or being overly restricted with eating, over exercising, low estrogen is one of the things that happens. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So the what we're talking about today when we're talking about period loss is a condition called hypothalamic amenorrhea.
Mhm.
And the most basic way to explain that is your brain shuts down the communication between your brain and your ovaries. It's saying, hey, it's unsafe. I'm going to stop this. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more complexity to what's happening there, but it's an easy way to think of it.
Mhm.
And that then lowers three primary hormones: FSH, LH, and estrogen. And it's why your body can never get to the state of ovulation, which then leads to either period or pregnancy, because there's never the follicular phase of the rising of the estrogen and the rising of the follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH, that then leads to luteinizing hormone surging, causing ovulation. So none of that happens because the ovulation switch is turned off, because your body sees it as an unsafe time to get pregnant. So we like to really hone in on the estrogen piece because of what I was talking about just a second ago. A lot of people think, oh, this is estrogen dominance because it's such a common used term, when in fact for them it's the exact opposite. It's actually a lower suboptimal estrogen problem, in addition to other hormones that are also low. And also because a lot of times they will still present as normal when you look at the reference ranges with labs, but they are indeed in a state of lower suboptimal estrogen levels. I mean, technically 50 or below is what we're looking for to diagnose someone with hypothalamic amenorrhea, or HA. We'll just call it that because it's a mouthful.
Yeah, easier to say.
But that's still technically within a reference range, especially for a follicular phase. So it gets missed a lot. And I think it's really important for people who have period loss to really be able to kind of connect those dots of oh, that just because it's normal on a reference range of my blood labs, or just because, I see all this stuff out there about people having too much estrogen, doesn't mean that's true for me. I'm trying to get people more educated on hey, low estrogen has pretty negative impacts, not just to your fertility. I mean, especially if we look at bone health. I mean, that's significant. Estrogen is so important for so many aspects of your bodies, but especially bones, brain, and heart health. You have to have healthy estrogen levels.
Yep. Absolutely. So it sounds like you like to see 50 or above for any stage.
Well, if we're looking at, so typically with if you're doing a sex hormone panel with your doctor, you're doing it on day 3 or day 4. Obviously that's hard to do if you have period loss, but ideally that's when you're doing it. And if we see something 50 or below, we do think of that as HA. More severe cases are 20, 30. That's what your doctor is probably looking for. But for us, anything below 50 indicates the likelihood of HA. And it could even be you have a period, but it's wildly unpredictable. You have a bleed, but it's anovulatory. We consider those within the spectrum of HA as well.
Got it. Okay. Any other common patterns with labs of what you tend to find?
Yep. So LH and FSH, I mentioned those when I was kind of explaining what happens. We typically see those below 10, but we'll even see them, especially with luteinizing hormone or LH, below 2. Progesterone is always going to be super, super low because they're not ovulating. So you're not going to have any amount of progesterone levels. If you're not ovulating, it's only elevated. It's your primary hormone in your luteal phase. But these specific people, they're never even getting to their luteal phase.
We totally see this as well, where they'll come in thinking maybe they have estrogen dominance, but the symptoms really don't match it. And then the labs, it'll be okay, you're 25, and it looks like these look like the labs of a postmenopausal woman.
Yeah.
It's
sometimes they are diagnosed with that. They're diagnosed as in menopause. I'm like, whoa, wait. A 20, 30-year-old woman should not be in.
Girl's 25.
She just doesn't have enough estrogen. Let's ask why, instead of just being oh, you're menopausal.
Right? You would think.
Yeah. You would think.
What about androgens? Do you like to routinely see androgens, or is it more if you're seeing there's obviously some other signs and symptoms of PCOS?
So I personally love to see androgens. I do think when we're looking at amenorrhea, it's important to rule out other causes of period loss. So I want to see androgens because I want to rule out PCOS, because if it is true PCOS, we need a completely different strategic plan to get your period back. And I think that's really important to make sure we're ruling out everything else. I even like to see prolactin levels to make sure that there's not something like a benign pituitary tumor causing elevated prolactin, therefore causing period loss. So we really like to see everything. Another one we really like to see is AMH. Now with AMH, it can present as very, very low or very, very high. And it just kind of depends on what's happening, if they have many follicles in their ovaries or they don't have any at all. I mentioned that too because I'm even working right now with a client who got misdiagnosed with PCOS because she has period loss and she has no elevated androgens, but she has very high AMH. I'm talking 29. Okay. And her doctor immediately diagnosed her with PCOS because of this, because we do commonly see elevated AMH with PCOS. However, you can also have elevated AMH with HA because your follicles aren't developing to maturation. So there's many small follicles just sitting there. Yeah. That's also why they can get misdiagnosed with PCOS. If you look on an ultrasound viewing, there can often be cyst or again mini follicles, but it's just because they're not they're not going to maturation, and that's why that's happening.
It's an easy mistake to make, it
Yeah,
sounds like.
it is, which is why I think labs and data are, you have to have them, but we also have to ask questions and look at people's history when we're trying to
Yeah.
differentiate, especially between HA and PCOS.
Right. Yeah, tell me some differences that you look for in that. I can imagine a couple, but what do you think? Like, what are some of the things of like that you kind of use to differentiate between those two things?
Well, you mentioned androgens, and again, I really like to see androgens. I bet you do too. Not only testosterone, but free
Yeah.
testosterone. Ideally, if we could see DHEAS, if we could see sex hormone binding globulin, if we can see insulin and fasting glucose, that's all really helpful, especially if we're seeing any signs of insulin resistance. We want to, again, kind of look at this picture if it's PCOS or not. LH and FSH is also really helpful too, because if your LH is a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio in comparison to FSH, that also points us more to a PCOS case instead of HA. So the labs are still very helpful there. With PCOS, I mean, you can technically have both. It's not very common, but I just don't want to assume that no one with PCOS has disordered eating. I think it can be common, but typically we're not going to see someone with PCOS, amenorrhea, training for hours every day. We're not going to see them eating 1,200 calories or less. We're not going to be seeing them in a low body fat state. Again, those are generalizations, and I want to be thoughtful that like there's always, exceptions.
Yeah, because there's like a higher incidence of eating disorders among women who do have PCOS. So it's like they could kind of have both good things going on.
Yeah. And so I think that's where working with someone like you or me, Erin, is so important, right? Someone who could say like, hey, if this is HA and PCOS, we have to treat the amenorrhea first, and then we'll come back to PCOS. If someone were to present that way, though, I'd always put them on a really blood sugar friendly diet, even with their amenorrhea specifically, and kind of manage it in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're such a good resource. You obviously know this space so well, and like what a blessing you are, because it's just like when women are in this situation, it is, I mean, you and I have been there and now we've seen it hundreds of times. It is just so awful. I mean, I see it, I just feel like it starts to spiral for them, where it's like, because they can't really get answers from their traditional provider. A lot of times they'll try to go to, it's hard to know who to trust. Sometimes they will have hired other providers to try to help them, and it's kind of made problems worse. It's just like, it's a really tricky space. And then they're also fighting their own mind a little bit sometimes, where it's like, it's really just, I don't know how you feel about this, but for some of them, they're so motivated to have a baby that if you just give them a plan, they'll do it. And that's great. But for some of them, if it, the level of disordered eating is just such a barrier that, like, even if they want to execute on the plan, they just really have a hard time overcoming that.
It is really hard to overcome it. And in my opinion, I think it's where one-on-one support is a non-negotiable. I can give someone a plan, and we actually do have you can just purchase plans and you can purchase our Premier. But really what we find for most people is that they need the one-on-one support, not because I always say the process to get your period back is actually relatively easy and simple. The work to get there, though, is anything but that. And that's specifically because of the fear of weight gain, the getting used to eating more, the pulling back on exercise when that's your only coping mechanism for stress in your life. It's understandable why, the plan itself can seem or appear relatively easy, but the actual work itself is really more mental, emotional. And honestly, that's my favorite part, though. It is such an honor to help people develop not only a fertile body and lead to a healthy pregnancy and the beautiful baby in their arms, but to do so in a way in which they're really developing an entirely new relationship, not with just food and not just exercise, but with themselves ultimately. And I don't know about you, Erin, but I know for me, that part is just so, that's what gives me life. And that's why I wake up every day to do this work, because the idea of having the next generation of these beautiful babies that we're creating, have these moms that have these healthy relationship with food and exercise, that's everything to me, because that's how we change generational dieting. And that's how we really transform things for the next generations.
Absolutely, girl. We got to work together. And like when you can equip a mother to have healthy thinking around women's bodies and food, she can pass that on to her children. And then that can just be like a shift, hopefully, in our culture. I mean, I know there's a lot of things that also fight against that movement, but I mean, at least it feels good to be on the positive side of that.
Yeah. I love the idea of like their kids, that they work so hard to to create and put so much effort into changing themselves to create. I mean, they get to then have this relationship with them where the kids get to watch them exercise, but also take rest days and, eat a lot of nourishing foods, eat a lot of salads, and have a household too where they, go get ice cream together. It's
Right.
both and for me, that's so exciting that we're going to help children moving forward really see that like a healthy relationship with food is not, it is a very nutritious diet and it's also food freedom. And it's really showing that like both exist. And how do we like get out of these extremes that we're in as a culture right now, where it's either extreme dieting, excessive over exercising,
Yeah.
or it's basically the exact opposite. And people
Yeah.
think health is completely
Right.
unattainable to them.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me kind of like, I mean, I know that's a lot, but I'll bet you have a pretty succinct answer to this question of what would you say is like a basic protocol or like the pathway or the pillars of like, I've lost my period, Victoria. What are the things that you're going to have me do? Like, what are some of the steps of that?
Yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is a root cause investigation with why is your period missing? A lot of what we referenced just a bit ago, right? Where it's like, let's look at your labs, let's look at your history, let's look at everything that's going on, your current eating and exercise, but also sleep, stress. These play a role in fertility too. So we want to kind of see everything. And then from there, develop what we call a tailored period comeback plan, which is a specific eating, exercise, and lifestyle plan, as well as supplements to get your body in a state of health, rest, nourishment, so that you can get your period back. With our clients, we get their periods back within 6 to 10 weeks. Is actually a pretty quick process.
That's fast.
It is really fast.
Wow.
And
I thought you were going to say months when you said 6. I thought you were going to say 6 months, but
so
you said
usually
weeks.
it's weeks. And an easy way to reference, a lot of times we'll just say like 90 days or less, because it really can be that simple if you follow the plan. And it looks like eating more and exercising less and giving your body a lot of rest and safety. And there's specifics, if you want me to, I can get into even more detail of like what caloric range we're looking for in exercise. But all to say it's eating more and exercising less and giving your body some time to breathe and to get in a state of safety. Once we get the periods back, usually we're looking at a pregnancy within 1 to 6 months. Again, it can be relatively simple. Of course, though, the work is the one-to-one, the emotional, mental support. Why is this so hard for me? Why do I fear carbohydrates? Why does taking a rest day from exercise cause so much immense guilt for me? So that healing your relationship with food and body peace to me is a non-negotiable. But we also look at functional labs, like we order HTMA or hair tissue mineral analysis with our clients. We want to replenish minerals after years of dieting. Sometimes we do look at other labs like stool samples or Dutch if we need a little bit more information. So it's really combining healing your relationship with food, functional lab testing, and customized protocols, as well as just how do we properly nourish your body for fertility, and really combining all of that throughout our time together to get those quick and results that we get our clients.
Okay, yeah, so good. I like how you pull it all together. We're very similar of like bringing the functional approach, but having the supplements and everything are just like it's not a replacement to the fundamentals. Like the fundamental thing, like you said, in this case, is eating more, resting more, exercising less, de-stressing, and like the supplements can be an adjunct to that. But
Yep.
yeah, I'm totally with you. And like investigating root causes, because a lot of times it's like what we've already said, where like these women are coming in already having asked for help and from a number of people, and there hasn't been enough root cause work done. So it's really important.
Very
Yeah.
few people will actually ask this question. So, like, how many calories are you actually eating every day? How many carbohydrates are you actually
Yeah.
eating every
Right.
day? How many vegetables? A lot of times with our clients, they're eating so much protein and vegetables, which, to be fair, are so important for fertility, and we don't take those away. But you can't only eat protein and vegetables and exercise as much as they are. As I mentioned, like 6-7 days a week, and also walking so many steps per day. That's just is too much on the body. Your body has to have nourishment to move as much as you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's just kind of like, this is like an old school like thing that a lot of healthcare professionals think of, like if a woman comes in and she's not like looking emaciated, skinny, that there's no problem here. But I don't know about you. I've seen a lot of women who are overweight in this exact situation where they're under eating, over exercising, their hormones are in the tank. It's not like you'll just lose weight it's not like if you're doing this, you'll lose weight until you're like extremely skinny and then your hormones crash. It's like
Yeah.
your hormones will crash even if you're not losing weight doing this.
Yeah, that's such a good point, and I'm so glad you brought that up because this can happen at any body size. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's not just the emaciated woman that we're all kind of picturing in your head, and that's kind of pointing to, like, the fact that we don't understand eating disorders. Eating disorders happen in all
Yeah.
body sizes. But if we do look at someone who maybe does live in a larger body, something that we see commonly with those clients is that they lost a rapid amount of weight in a short period of time. And even
Mhm.
though they still live in a larger body, it was still too much on their bodies. I mean, to lose so much weight so rapidly and
Yeah.
being in an energy deficit with, again, eating and exercise, that too can lead to period loss. And that will definitely be a subset of the clients that we see too.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say, like when you're trying to implement the part of the plan of eating more food? Tell me more about that framework. Like, how do you help women to do that?
Yes. So it looks like about 2,500 calories a day or more, which I'm sure someone listening is like shocked, just like died a little hearing that. I get it. I used to feel that way too. And I heard that many calories, but there's a lot of research behind women needing that amount of calories for healthy hormone production, for fertility, for turning on that ovulation switch again. And the way we'll often describe it is a temporary time frame to help your body feel safe again. And then from there, we can really look at what your body truly needs after about a 3-month period of getting your period back. So calorie surplus, often 2,500 calories a day or more. There is, for us, a big focus on carbohydrates and fat, primarily because these are people who are not eating enough of those. They're really just focused on protein and vegetables, but also because those are the two that we need for hormone production. And then with the exercise, we're limiting it to usually about 3 days a week. We don't ever completely take away exercise because our clients, it's just such an
Yeah,
important part
falling
of their
away.
lives. Yeah. And, we do need some amount of exercise too
Yeah.
for health. So I don't think we have to completely take it away, but pulling back on the walks, pulling back on the days or the frequency, and then
Mhm.
often just changing the intensity. For running marathons or we're doing HIIT style exercises or CrossFit training, maybe we're instead looking at Pilates or bar or yoga or very slow method of strength training where we're not overexerting our bodies when we're exercising. And honestly, we kind of have phases that we walk people through because on a long-term basis, really what I want people on is a high protein diet and a more moderate carbohydrate. I want them, especially strength training and walking. I think those are two fundamentals for movement that we all need. But initially, in that first phase, we kind of need to do the opposite to get the body safe again. And then we kind of phase into what we want for long-term health, as well as, anything that's healthy is also your fertility. So getting them in
Yeah.
a state of fertility once we've gotten their periods back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one way I describe it is like when you're eating food, that's a signal to your body of safety, that
Mhm.
it's safe. There's if there's an adequate amount of food in the environment to grow and a baby and feed a child. Like this is ancient history for humans. Like women's bodies are wired to be looking for signs that
Mhm.
it's a safe environment for that. And so you're really sending that signal to your body that yes, we are not in a famine here. It's a
Yeah.
safe place for a child. There is adequate calorie availability. So that's one way I kind of try to describe it because it is like I think helpful it, there's like the process of like bargaining that kind of happens where it's like, well, what if I do like this instead, like the supplements is a classic example,
Mhm.
or like meditation or whatever. It's like, no, this is really like a non-negotiable part of this, that for women in this specific thing of like if they don't sense that there's enough energy availability for a baby to grow into human, um, that's our programming, is to then like protect against getting pregnant by pulling back hormone production. So it has to
Yeah.
happen.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Fertility is the most energy demanding time of a woman's body's
Yeah.
life.
And breastfeeding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and breastfeeding, I mean, it is really, if you really sit and think about what your body does as it creates human life and then gives birth to it and then continues to sustain it and give it the nourishment. I mean, it's both beautiful and fascinating, but also if you really think about it, you can think how much energy that requires. And, if we even want to kind of talk to egg quality here for a moment, it's not just getting your body feeling safe enough to turn back on the ovulation switch. It's also egg quality, making sure your body is getting the nutrition required to have healthy eggs so that once you are ovulating and cycling again, these are eggs that can lead to implantation, maturation, and ultimately, again, that baby that we're looking for. So it matters so much. And yes, the supplements matter. When you were talking about something a second ago, it made me think of nervous system regulation. Like all those things matter. We do nervous system regulation with our clients, mineral support, supplementation, but we have to be eating more and exercising less too. Those are the top of the hierarchy of importance if we're struggling with a specific condition of HA.
Yeah, exactly. I like how you talk about egg quality too, because I think a lot of times, tell me if I got this wrong, but a lot of times these women are kind of at the brink of like, okay, you're gonna have to have like IVF, which is obviously extremely expensive, and that's one of the problems. But I'm not against IVF, but like if it can simply be avoided by, not simply, but if it can be avoided by going through a protocol like what you do, most women I think prefer that over getting IVF. And the side thing of that is that IVF isn't doing anything for egg quality.
We're fixing the problem itself.
It's not nourishing you to prepare you for your pregnancy. It's not nourishing you to prepare you for breastfeeding. It's not giving you the nutrients you need for your mental health and your mood, for nourishing your baby's brain. Like there's all these things, these reasons why it's important to go into pregnancy nourished. The IVF really doesn't resolve any of that problem of like if the fundamental thing here is a lack of nourishment. Sure, you might be able to get pregnant with IVF, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have the same exact thing happen as if you nourished yourself and got pregnant, because you're now nourishing that baby in a more complete way. You're more nourished to breastfeed. You've got like an environment in place to nourish a child as they grow. The mindset around food that you can feed onto your child is there and it's improved. IVF is, again, I'm not against it, but like sometimes I think that's just a little short-sighted to think of like getting pregnant is all you need. It's like you really need the nourishment for a lot of other reasons that go beyond that, beyond the pregnancy itself. And if that makes sense. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I could not agree more, Erin. I think we can be so grateful IVF exists. I think it's incredible that modern medicine has gotten to this place where we can give women the option.
And you can get nourished and then get IVF, and that's great.
But I mean, that's a win-win in that way too. But I think the problem for me is that I understand why IVF could be needed for other hormone conditions, but when it comes to HA specifically, I just can't fathom why we wouldn't just tell a woman like, hey, like, you actually don't need this. You just need to eat more. You need to exercise less. You need to gain maybe a few pounds. Like your body just needs a different protocol. And really what we find a lot of times, because we do work with clients that are having unsuccessful IVF, and what you often find is that they're having to go through multiple rounds because you can't force a body to feel safe when it doesn't have what it needs. So IVF just never solves the problem. It may, for some women after multiple rounds, lead to a pregnancy, which is amazing. But why not just solve the problem? And to me, it's like we're solving so many problems when we solve this one problem. We're solving your bone health, your heart health, your brain health, your libido. We're solving your constant frequent urination, your bloating, your constipation. We're solving your relationship with food. We're solving your mental emotional health. We're solving, this generational dieting that we were talking about earlier. And we're making sure you can not only get pregnant this time, but all the future times you're able to support your body in the postpartum and then life afterwards too. I'm like, why not just solve this with one thing rather than have to rely on IVF for every single pregnancy? And autonomy to me is of the utmost importance, especially for women's bodies. So again, we've worked with clients that chose IVF, but I'm like, even still, you still need to nourish your body. Like this still, nourishing your body is truly it is everything. And it's even if you go the route of IVF, you still should be nourishing your body and
Yes.
working on this. But it does solve basically every problem that exists
Yeah.
for my specific people.
Yeah, exactly. If it really is HA, and that is like that was the case with me. It was literally just that.
Have you experienced
Um,
HA?
yeah,
I did
yeah,
not know
yeah.
that.
That was what
Mm,
it was. It was just pure under eating, over exercising, and didn't have a period for a long time.
yeah.
Um, and it changed my life, like in a way that worked out for the best. But I, I don't want to overshare. But what I'm trying to underscore here is like this is a huge life-changing problem for
Mhm,
women, and anybody that's listening that has this problem knows that. But it literally did change the course of my life because I knew I wanted to have children. I knew I had some kind of fertility problem. I didn't understand why, but I
mhm,
knew I didn't get my period very much, and it caused me to get married younger and like try to have a child younger and put off. I had some career goals that because I got been going I was going into the military. I went to the Air Force Academy. I had gone there thinking I was going to be a pilot and then I wanted to be an astronaut. It's like so funny. Like I was like, this is my whole life plan. But then as soon as I realized that I was going to have problems with having a baby, I said, the path of a female pilot is that you wait until like maybe you're pushing 30, over 30 for sure to have children.
mhm.
Um, and I thought that's probably unwise for me, considering the health problem that I have that I don't understand. And I declined a pilot slot and took a different job and just kind of gave up on my whole career plan for my whole life and decided to get married younger and start trying to get pregnant younger. And my life's been great. I don't regret it. But I think a lot of women have stories like that where it's like, this is a life changing thing. And then when you kind of like, to be frank, pisses me off when like
Yeah,
you get older and you realize, like, are you freaking kidding me? I saw all these healthcare providers, and the whole time it was just that I like shouldn't have been working out for 2 hours a day while I
yeah,
like skip
yeah,
lunch.
yeah.
Like, somebody should have freaking told me that.
Yeah, gosh,
Like,
I have goosebumps right now. Yeah, so when you went
what
to
the
doctors,
hell?
did anyone ever say anything to you? I know that they never
They
did
put me
for
on
me.
birth control
Yeah,
so
same.
that I could, like, quote, have a period, which, as we said, is not a period. It's
Yeah.
like not an answer to that. I
And
even
even
had that it was all like in the they had like medical clinic there for the cadets at the Air Force Academy where I was going to college, and they like part of it was like dental, and I had where this is so crazy, like I had to get like a graft in my mouth because I had my gums were like receding in the front of my
Mhm.
mouth, and so they did a procedure to like graft some of the rooftop of my mouth, some of that tissue onto my gums. And it turns out that was from malnutrition. Like that's completely what that was about. And it's just crazy how much I was there's a huge incidence of disordered eating at military academies with the women anyway. So it's like
I've worked with a
really,
small handful of military women. I can see their
yeah,
stories and yours of like, God, it makes sense though. I mean, because there's such an emphasis right on diet and
yeah, and your
exercise. And
body and everything. So it's
yeah,
like even more egregious that they wouldn't be like, like I would think if I was a healthcare provider at the Air Force Academy, I'd be like laser focused on disordered eating because it's almost all of these women have it.
yeah.
Like,
And
why
it
would you not
makes
pick
me
up
think of,
on
like,
that?
female sports too, like, the
Yeah,
military should be treating it like most female sports, or at least they're starting to change. I think of, like, the
yeah,
gymnastics and how they're trying to create a safe sport, and,
yeah,
part of that is actually addressing the disordered eating, and because female athlete triad, which is basically just
yeah,
HA, just a different name
yeah.
for it.
The athletes have.
That's yeah, it's just an incredibly common, especially, like, in gymnastics, in
Yeah,
military. It's unfortunate because, again, all these women need like, we can all still be these active, healthy women we love to be who, especially for y'all train so hard. We just
yeah,
need to eat some more to support that.
right? I mean, yeah, I mean, we evolve, and I'm glad that you're, Victoria, doing so much to get the word out on this and to
Thank
support
you.
women. It's just such an important thing. That's what I'm trying to say is that, like, this is all health problems are important, but I think this is just, it's tragic the way this is so life altering for young women and young families. And,
Yeah, it's tragic when your health problems are caused specifically from disordered eating. And I think as a culture, we're just not yet
yeah.
at that place. Like we're at the place where we're like, okay, diet culture is a thing, and we can kind of pinpoint that, but we're not yet at the place where we're like, no, there's consequences to this, and there's like hefty consequences.
Yeah.
So like we have to be willing to now see this next layer, I think, in the culture of this is problem, because like this truly is changing women's lives in a negative way, in their health, in their fertility, in their ability to conceive. Like this is critical. We have to address this now.
Yeah.
And I so appreciate you sharing your story, because it just, again, it gave me goosebumps, and also like, gosh, we all can relate in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I thought at the time I was weird and like alone in it. And now, of course, doing this work for so long, I've come to realize it's like, oh my gosh, like it's like super common.
Super common.
Yeah. So just talking about it is good. And again, you are such a great source of support. So Victoria, tell me more about, how can people connect with you? How can they learn more about your programs, and where can they find you?
Yes. Thank you so much for asking. So we hang out primarily on Instagram. We're very active there. You can DM me literally anytime, and I'll respond pretty quickly. At Nourishing Minds Nutrition is where you can find us. And then we have a podcast. We release episodes every single week. It's called the Nourishing Women Podcast. And our focus is on period recovery for HA, but we also talk a lot about fertility, nutrition. And we also have this term called wellness without obsession, which is basically how do you live life after getting your period back, getting pregnant. And we're really trying to teach what we've talked about today, Erin, of like, how do you live a healthy lifestyle without it being obsessive, dogmatic, rigid? So those are the two primary places you can find us. Also, I'll just add our website, nourishingmindsnutrition.com. You'll see everything about the offers we have. Our primary one being Premier Period Recovery for Fertility, where we help women who've lost their periods get their periods back and get pregnant. Finally, we have a free training, which I'll give you the link to, so we can include that in the show notes. And it shows you exactly how you can get your period back and restore your fertility in 90 days or less without focusing on gaining weight or giving up all exercise to make that happen.
That's amazing, Victoria. Thank you. And we'll definitely put everything in the show notes so people can easily just click over and find you. And definitely love your Instagram. And I just want to second that. It's outstanding. So definitely everybody make sure to give her a follow, because she is amazing.
Thank you. I so appreciate that.
You too. It's so great to have you on, and we'd love to have you back. Hit me up.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, would love that.
Talk to you soon. Bye.